Good evening. My name is Angie Strickler, and this is Blake Alford, and we are S.U.R.E, standing up for racial equity. I would like to begin our presentation tonight by taking a moment to acknowledge, honor, and appreciate that the land that we are gathered on now is the homeland of the Lenape people. May 25th, 2020, man dies after a medical incident during police interaction. This was the headline of the police report released the next day. Today, we all know better. We know the true story of George Floyd. We all know how much he suffered for 9.5 minutes. We all know that it was murder. The death of George Floyd, and I would like to add Breonna Taylor, changed my life in a profound and unexpected way. I listened to George Floyd's eulogy and stood in silence with the audience for the then 8 minutes and 46 seconds. It was in that moment that I made the conscious and intentional decision to no longer be a silent participant in the oppression of people of color. Initially, I wasn't sure how to get started on my journey. I was full of a lot of unsettled energy. I began educating myself about systemic racism by reading and listening to podcasts. I turned to social media and found that I was not alone, as many others in Anderson were crying out for change. Still, I was searching for more, and I began making connections with people in the community who were already doing equity work. Through our conversations, the message I kept hearing is that about the need and importance of equity work so everyone who calls Anderson home feels supported, welcome, and included. On May 11th, the culmination of my searching was realized when I facilitated the first meeting of Madison County S.U.R.E, standing up for racial equity. S.U.R.E's mission is to educate ourselves and the community about issues like microaggressions and implicit bias. It is time that we in the community stand up and advocate, it is time that we in the white community stand up and advocate with people of color about issues that are affecting their lives. And we must engage across racial lines to build authentic relationships so that we can become one community.
What does racial equity mean? Equity and equality often get used interchangeably but have very different meanings. Equality is when everyone is given the same resources despite their needs. Equity is when an individual is given all the resources they need to succeed. Now, let's imagine equity and inequity as trees with deep roots that produce various fruits. The roots of inequity and the soil that feeds it negatively are affecting our nation, our state, and our city. There are inequities such as structural racism, poverty, historical trauma, poor water and air quality, poor housing, and substandard wages. S.U.R.E asked community members about their thoughts about life in Anderson in regards to race at several events in recent months. These are some of the words they used: overlooked for opportunities, bias, difficult, ignored, and sad. Again, these are words people use to describe life right here in Anderson, our home. Now we see what a healthy tree could look like. In King County, Washington, these citizens came up with an equity tree showing the 14 primary conditions they need to thrive to challenge inequities such as structural racism, poverty, and historical trauma. We need equitable law and justice systems, affordable, safe, and quality housing, and access to health and human services. When asked what changes in people in Anderson would like to see, citizens use these words: inclusion, access to same resources, equality and respect, leadership in government, and community discussions. This is the voice of the people of Anderson and what they are demanding. Conversations are the foundation for building relationships. When we share our stories with one another, all the stereotypes and biases, all the preconceived judgments fade away, and we are left seeing the actual person sitting in front of us. Dialogue is already happening in Anderson, and it's time for us to take it to the next level. The first step S.U.R.E has chosen is to make space and to give space for courageous conversations as the way to give individuals the opportunities to both share their story and receive the stories of others. S.U.R.E will host an event called Courageous Conversations. We recognize that conversations about race can be uncomfortable, especially in the white community, as we have been taught that race is not appropriate to talk about. Our event will have 80 attendees from various walks of life in our community. We will have a racially diverse table settings with a table facilitator trained to guide conversations where we will share stories and learn from each other. We also know that nothing helps a conversation move along more than having some good food and drinks to go with it. Our meal will also be a part of the conversation as we will use local diverse vendors and caterers to provide our food. In addition to our conversations, our event will be intentionally spotlight vendors to give them added exposure. Will you join us in setting the table by casting your vote this evening? Our event will take place in the beautiful banquet hall at Love Events here in Anderson. We are intentionally choosing this venue because our commitment to promote and advocate for Black-owned businesses and diversity through our work. Our goal is to have this event twice a year. This is sure to be a great event for our community.
The path to racial equity is not linear. S.U.R.E's tagline is educate, advocate, and engage. And we believe that as we continue to cycle through these three action words, progress will be made. Not in a straight line, but rather gathering momentum and size, like a snowball. Juneteenth, 2020, a march was organized from the old Kmart on Rabel to City Hall. I will never forget the feeling of power, strength, and camaraderie that I felt as I marched through the city with my wife and total strangers. We chanted, "Show me what solidarity looks like. This is what solidarity looks like." It has been 16 months since the murder of George Floyd. 6 minutes have passed since we started our presentation. He would now be unresponsive, and yet a knee would be on his neck for another 3 minutes and 29 seconds. Your vote for S.U.R.E is essential for us to begin the conversations and build a more equity-centered Anderson. We're standing up for racial equity. Will you? Thank you.